Great, it is recording. So, okay.
Just cut off the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't include this part.
I'll cut it off.
Okay, everybody quiet.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, fellow space engineers. This is Marcelo from ACFN Gaming.
And this is Seth. We got a problem.
Yes, we have at least 2 carriers in need of overhaul. They are outdated, but we decided to build one anew for the use of both of our factions. You go ahead.
We had some common wants for this carrier. We wanted, some fighter base. Obviously, it's not a carrier without fighters, but also a place to dock and service our frigates. And luckily, we have a lot of standardization between our factions, which we'll talk about in a moment. But we thought while we're doing this collaboratively, we could make a video and show you guys our process and some building techniques that you can use in making your own ships.
Yeah, things that we have picked up, over the hours that we have playing this game, and also from the knowledge of our friends.
So, just to start off with, we've been playing together for quite a while. So, in a kind of space NATO fashion, agreed upon some certain standard things that we think make sense. First, and importantly to carriers, is fighter bay size, fighter pad design. We both agree on kind of a 5x5 large block pad with a connector on the bottom in the center and 2 blocks tall for making sure that you can make it work with just a single set of airtight doors.
This in turn saves space and also enables fighters from Seth's faction or to land on my carriers and vice versa.
Yeah. So this means we only have to build to one common set fighter size and design for making this carrier, which is part of what enables us to collaborate and share this effort. The next important part is airlock design and size, and we both we have our own unique designs for it. They're both based on Whiplash 141's airlock system. So if you come over here and look at some of the ships that we're going to be basing this carrier, we've got some ships from my faction and some ships from Marcelo's.
Would you like to talk about the airlock in detail, or the ships that you want to build off the carrier?
I'll go ahead and just mention the airlocks briefly. I go for something that can actually be made airtight when merging, so you have a helmetless walkthrough. Merge blocks, they're still kind of wonky, and it's not a great idea to merge 2 ships still. So hopefully, cross your fingers, in the future it'll be a bit better. But my airlocks are still compatible with Whiplash's and Marcelo's, even though they can't merge. And Marcelo has gone for a more minimalist design. Still compatible with WMI airlocks, Whiplash Military Industries.
Yeah, I wanted to have, let's say, fewer components. I originally tried having 2 connectors side by side. That, I have to say that stabilizes when the ship, it's approaching the docking ring. But I wanted to have like a readout of them using a master script, so I just decided to go for one connector, and also for ease of repairs. And if the area gets damaged, I only have to repair 1 connector. It's kind of like a little bit of a simplification there. And I use. Go ahead.
I was going to say one commonality between my airlocks and yours is that both of our ships, they are asymmetrical with the sort of station airlocks. So you can see on your Nereid, it's got the airlock connector to the side of the airlock, whereas on the Artemis, the connector is above the airlock.
Yes.
And either position works with the standard WMI docking connector. but it's not compatible with docking to another ship, which,
Exactly.
considering you have protrusions from turrets and things, you generally need a docking collar to extend a docking.
Yeah, I went
So
for
it's
like
fine.
a more synced in airlock, and let's say I favor simplicity in this case, and I think yours is more versatile in general.
So the third thing that is important for our standardization is we have a very, not always exactly the same, very similar definition and kind of idea of what size makes for what class of ship.
Yeah.
Um, Marcelo has the Artemis. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I classified it as a destroyer, and it's a ship that I put like in the mid range. Kind of like comparable to Whip's Komodo. It's around 3 million kilograms, and it's focused on offense using guided and unguided weapons, launching unguided slugs and launching guided missiles. So that's my destroyer in my classification.
So, and I have this is one of the new line of ships I've been. This is a Ticonderoga class frigate, and it's actually about 2 million tons dry. It's more than that with a full load of ammo and everything else. And similarly, it's focused on offense. It's got a lot of focused frontal firepower. It has the option to take different weapon modules, including, as it's set up for right now, 2 missile tubes, which gives it the same kind of long-range PMW guided missile reach that Marcelo's Artemis has. No, don't look in there. It's not done. It's not done.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the small grid arms finished for holding missiles
No,
yet.
actually, me neither. Well, I just have a. But yeah, it's you were saying.
It looks similar in size to Marcelo's Artemis, but it's actually, it's slightly smaller volume wise, about the same length, about the same width, and that's what's going to be important for building this carrier. So, destroyer wise, we actually have very similar weight definitions because I have another destroyer that's kind of on the back burner at the moment, but it's also about 3 million kilograms to match the Artemis.
And then on the lower end, we have Corvettes. If
Yeah.
you would like to talk about yours first.
Well, mine's not actually a Corvette because I did not include a jump drive.
Oh, true.
So it's actually a patrol craft. And these are the smaller end of ships that we want to include in this in the docking bay area of the carrier. So we figured we'd show the smallest and the largest because that's what we're going to build around, and anything that's kind of in between them should still work. The Yorktown is very small. It's light armament, operated by one person, no jump drive, only one ion thruster, so you can kind of take long trips with it without spending your hydrogen fuel. It actually has about 10 minutes of hydrogen flight time between 3 generators and 1 large tank. And then you've got the Nereid, which is based on Nordic's Enceladus.
Yes, yes, the Enceladus, and so I don't know how to say it in English correctly, but in any case, Enceladus, and this is basically the Nordic's own main engine cluster that I really like because how compact it was and how well balanced it was, and it looks kind of realistic too, especially the position of the attitude control thrusters. And then what I did is that he had the, let's say, the player control bits towards the front, and we both generally like to put those more towards the back. So what I did is that I with the help of Mike, of Whip, and I don't know if I'm missing anyone else, but we built this ship amongst ourselves, several of our group of friends, and we enlarged it, elongated it, added weapons, and each person contributed to a particular part of the ship. So I ended up having a Corvette that does have a single jump drive, and it's capable of going into a planet and taking off from it, and also has some reasonable loiter time, and that you can do between ice refueling from, I'd say, I don't know, like lake to lake. If you want to do some mining and then refuel the craft, you can move around a
Right.
planet.
It's like I'm gonna see if I can paste in a Norfolk,
Hmm.
so I can just quickly demonstrate that I need to make sure the weapons are off. So just spectator over here, make sure it's all good. Yep. Okay. I will be right back over. All right, and this is this kind of completes the set of the ships that I want to service with my carrier. Paste controls, why work logically. Yep.
Oh.
I'll swing this around real quick and bring it next to the raid. Now, one thing we kind of arrived at independently, but we both ended up with this vernier thruster kind of look for our maneuvering thrusters back on our engineering sections. He arrived at it from, I guess, Nordics Enceladus, and I was what was the name of that game? I can't remember. It had something like Stiletto class destroyer. That was the main ship I flew.
Was it like the Jupiter incident one or no? Nexus?
Oh yeah, it was Jupiter incident. Nexus
Nexus,
Institute. That
yeah.
one. Yeah, that one. That one had a kind of nice, hard sci-fi feel. A lot of reaction thrusters. It was kind of inspiring me towards this, along with watching The Expanse and all that stuff. So I've kind of gone for these big drive bells and reaction control systems and all that fun stuff. So these are both our Corvettes, and you can see they're still very similar. The Norfolk is a bit heavy, a bit more aggressively armed. It doesn't have them on right now, but it also has some underbelly missile racks for a PMW loadout. But if you look at thruster layouts, their facilities, jump drives, they've each got one. Crew complements, they're both built for about 2. Very similar ships.
They're basically an exercise in space saving. They're easy to maintain and easy to produce. I think maybe in survival capturing a few of the NPC ships would give you one of these.
Yeah, the as much as I like the Ticonderoga, the Norfolk is really more the size of ship that I think is suitable for survival play.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing something competitive or PvP.
Yeah, I think, to quote High Ground, something that you want to fight with, but also at the same time you're not gonna cry if you lose it.
Yeah, it's the old EVE Online rule: never fly something that you can't afford to replace.
Yeah.
Which is, you may put together the resources to build some incredible battleship on a public PvP server, but somebody chucks a rock at it and it hits it in the wrong spot, and you lose the entire thing, and all that work goes up,
Yeah.
and you just can't replace it. Not quickly, not easily.
Exactly. Or worse, I mean, somebody can steal it while you're offline. So.
Yeah.
So now that we reached that point, survival is one of the elements. Survival in servers that we have been, motivated by to do this carrier build up. So we want something that works in survival and that we want to play with and we can use also.
Yeah. So it absolutely has to be fully conveyored. Can't just be aesthetic. It can't just fill the inside with a half dozen large reactors and just make it pretty on the outside. And it has to be functional through and.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. In my case, if you want, I can give you like three things that I want to change from my carriers. And
Yeah,
then,
go for it.
okay, so first off, too many ions. The carriers that we
Definitely.
built, yeah, they were pre hydrogen thrusters, I think,
Yeah.
and they are way too heavy in ions. And being larger ships, they they can be expensive just because of the ions, no, not the iron that it costs you to make the entire frame. Then that leads to size. They are quite large, and now with the block count caps that we find in servers, that also puts a limit. Uh, because maybe you can just convert them into hydrogen ships, but they are still too large. Maybe they have way too many blocks. So that's another thing. And the last one is mods. We have like a cradle of mods that we like that we would never abandon. But the previous carriers, they had way too many of those. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you wanna like go into detail about that.
I mean, we used to play with a food and thirst mod.
Mm-hmm.
We had some. We used armored thrusters. I particularly liked Axe Lion's medium, or Axe Lion's thruster pack, which had medium, extra large, and extra small thrusters that were. The mediums were 2x2x3, and I know everybody sees them and it's like, oh my god, a square thruster. But I mean, those haven't been updated. They still have the old thruster kind of models with the low detailed cones, and nobody knew about the pack, so I was pretty much like the only one using it. Marcel, whenever we made a world, and it's like, I can't paste my ships to use modded thrusters. So we've all cut back. For this, just in this world, we have OKI guns, which is a pack I maintain myself. So we're happy with the balance of it. We know it's always updated. Digi's interior lights, it's not actually required anymore in terms of it adding small interior lights to small grid ships, but it does add a control panel to interior lights. So when it comes to having to set up the interior lighting on the carrier, it'll be helpful for setting that up, but if we remove the mod, it doesn't remove lights. So all the settings would stay. So it's just something that's a kind of a quality of life. Again, and we've also got Digi's build info and the TextHUD API. Again, quality of life thing, creative. Paint gun, same thing. The other, the last mod and the only other kind of block requirement mod is Rexar's Laser Shipyard, which is what we're going to be using for the Frigate Bay that we're building to kind of build and service frigates.
Yeah, that's basically kind of like something that makes sense in our way of seeing it. If you're gonna make a carrier that is pretty much like in the standard of Homeworld, in which you can build, your own escort from the carrier. In this case, frigates and corvettes. It makes sense to have something better than just building by hand or a bunch of welders, which they are more time consuming. It just doesn't lend itself to having such a big ship if you're gonna end up building in the same way that you build it like in any other kind of game by hand or by a small welding ship. So
Right.
I mean, it
And
just.
we had a
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we had a choice between Laser Shipyard and Nanites. And while Nanites are pretty cool, we feel they take a lot of the engineering out of the game because it's just a block that you could place anywhere. And you just feed it components and power, and it does everything. It heals you, it picks things up for you, it builds stuff for you, it tears stuff down for you. It takes a lot of the challenge and the puzzle out of the engineering game. Whereas the Laser Shipyard, you kind of gotta build area for it. You gotta engineer it some.
I mean, you have to plan the actual shipyard. It's not just like placing the nanite block and that's it. So you need to,
Yeah.
build a scaffolding and connect it. So it's like you said, there's an engineering to it. Okay, so I don't know. Would you like to say anything else about the requirements of the carrier, or should we just get on
Yeah, we
to it?
can talk about the Frigate Bay because before we started recording, we talked about we decided the ships that we want to use on it. And given that, we had to kind of figure out how big does this bay area want to make be, which is going to be counted it all out. And both the Ticonderoga and the Artemis, the biggest ships that we want to fit in there, are about 45 blocks long. And they're both, I think it was 11 blocks wide between the airlocks.
Yeah.
And they both, I think that the Ticonderoga is slightly taller in terms of block counts just because there's interior light very top and bottom that push it over. So, but 15 blocks tall, about does it for about anything we want to do, and that nicely centers the airlock, both of them, right in the middle.
Yeah.
And we decided on 15 wide between the airlocks because that both gives us space to fit the 11 block wide airlocks on larger ships in there, but it also allows me to double up and fit 2 of the Yorktowns in there side by side. The bay itself will have to be wider than the airlock connectors in terms of where we place the laser shipyard welders so that we can weld the whole hull. So that'll have to be at least 17 wide. And that gives us a general idea of this block. It's maybe 45 to 50 blocks long, 15 blocks tall, and maybe about 17 blocks wide. And that's going to be the size of the bay on the carrier. That's the starting point for how big this thing is going to be. On top of that, we're going to need, space behind and in front of that for a little bit of a prow to kind of pretty up the front. I want it to just be a box. And
Yeah.
on the back, we want to have fuel tanks and thrusters. So overall, we're thinking it's probably going to end up being 70 to 80 blocks long, maybe about 19 to 21 blocks wide. And the carrier itself, maybe the same height as width, 19 to 20 blocks. But most of that is going to be the arms coming down from the sort of I mean, you guys have seen sci-fi shipyards with the arms that come down around whatever ship's in the dry dock. So it'll be kind of like that, and that'll make up at least half the height.
And that's still fairly reasonable for as ships go in the game.
Yeah, in terms of motherships, your biggest of the big, that won't hurt your performance too much. That won't be too tough to build. It's attainable.
Exactly. So, well, if there's anything else you want to say, we can begin building.
All right, I'm gonna toss down that basic frigate box, that size we talked about. So
Okay.
we also talked about. We also measured the placement of the airlocks, and they're actually exactly 19 blocks forward from furthest point on the ship back on both the Ticonderoga and the Artemis. We didn't plan that; it just happened.
Yeah.
So we can actually use the same airlock position for both of them. It should work for everything that we want it to. And I think that's going to be 21 blocks forward, just to give a little wiggle room. But we can see how it develops as we build. So
Yeah. There are no coincidences. So okay, I'm gonna do a cut here, and then we can continue recording the second part.